All right, let's continue our discussions on Stoicism, going through the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. We've ended up in Book 7, and I found section 64 very interesting. Whenever you suffer pain, have ready to hand the thought that pain is not a moral evil and does not harm your governing intelligence. Pain can do no damage either to its rational or to its social nature. In most cases of pain, you should be helped too by the saying of Epicurus, "Pain is neither unendurable nor unending as long as you remember its limits and do not exaggerate it in your imagination." End of quote. Remember too that many things we find disagreeable are the unrecognized analogues of pain. Drowsiness, for example, oppressive heat, loss of appetite. So when you find yourself complaining of any of these, say to yourself, you are giving in to pain. Marcus Aurelius had a thing with pain, but that was because he suffered from a couple of physical ailments, so he actually was in pain quite a lot of the time. And if you want to learn more about that, there's a very nice book by Donald Robertson called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. And Marcus Aurelius does a couple of interesting things here. He does not only describe that, I think, somewhat personal struggle with pain, he also reaches for Epicurus, which is a very interesting choice, because if there are any two philosophical schools that really dislike each other, it's Stoicism and Epicureanism, because they preach very different ideals. Stoicism is about life is just life, and it's the way it is, and you have to go along with what happens. Whereas Epicureanism is very much a matter of, no, enjoy life, have as much fun as you can. I'm exaggerating a bit, but enjoy pleasure, engage in pleasure. That will make your life better. Just have fun with it. Yeah, it's a bit simplified, but enjoy pleasurable things. Without pleasurable things, you can't be happy. Whereas Stoics are very much along the lines of, no, don't indulge in all kinds of things. Be in control of what you are doing. So don't give in to all those pleasures. Difficult. So this once again shows the difficult relationship between Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism. It's a similar thing with Seneca. They are Stoics, but they could be considered Stoics, but they're not the best examples because they're both a bit eclectic and they kind of pick and choose from different schools of philosophy, Stoicism being an important influence on them. Anyway, that's all philosophical banter. Beyond that quote, I think he says a couple of interesting things. Whenever you suffer pain, have ready to hand the thought that pain is not a moral evil and does not harm your governing intelligence. How is pain not a moral evil? Well, I think you should look at it this way. Think about the one thing that matters most to Stoics. Virtue. Stoic ethics, the Stoic principles of living life properly so that you can lead that life of eudaimonia, the rich and fulfilling life, are schooled on virtue. That's it. Without being a virtuous person, you cannot be a good person. You cannot truly enjoy life. And remember those virtues. There is wisdom, there is courage, there is justice, there is temperance. And all of those virtues have opposites. The vices. Wisdom has folly, and courage has cowardice, etc. So I think when Marcus Aurelius here is talking about moral evil, I think he's talking about those vices. And pain itself, you could argue, then is not truly a vice, because it's not an opposite of one of those four important cardinal virtues. So if it is not, this is kind of reinstating something we've talked about a number of times. In Stoicism, if something is neither a virtue nor a vice, then it is something else, and that something else is an indifferent. Keep touching the microphone. So, all else being equal, you would rather not have pain. So that makes it a dispreferred indifferent. You would rather not have that thing, but if it happens, It won't make you any less virtuous. It won't make you any more virtuous. It won't make you any more viceful. Because it is indifferent. Hence indifferent. The name indifferent is indifferent to virtue. Right? Just like we've talked about before. Preferred indifferent is money. People would like to have money. But even without money, you can be virtuous. You can do the right thing. Okay, so if pain is an indifferent, I think this is how I am unpacking this section from Marcus Aurelius. If pain is an indifferent, then it is that. That does not mean that you have to be indifferent to pain, although he is suggesting something like it. When I say it isn't indifferent, that merely means that it is indifferent to virtue. So it is not a virtue, nor is it a vice. It's something in between those two things. Okay. Well, if something is an indifferent, then in Stoicism you are allowed to pursue it or try to avoid it, but not at the cost of virtue. So you can try to avoid pain, but unfortunately that may not always work because some things in life are just painful. And you can't avoid them. Even if you would want to, you cannot avoid them. And it doesn't matter whether that is physical pain or whether that is psychological or emotional pain, some things will always be painful. And that's how life works. And a Stoic would then say, well, that means that if that indifferent crosses your path, do not let it distract you from virtue. Do not allow that bad thing, in this case that hurts you, become a viceful person. Remain virtuous. Remain aware of the choices you make. Everything you do, no matter what happens, you're always in charge of the choices you make. And you can do the virtuous thing, or you can do the viceful thing. You can do the good thing, or you can do the bad thing, and you're in charge. No one else is. You are in charge of what you do. And that can be very hard, right? And in the case of physical pain, that is a very troubling thing. In the case of psychological or emotional pain, that is also a troubling thing. What's interesting also is that he says pain can do no damage either to its rational or to its social nature. In most cases of pain, you should be helped to by the saying of Epicurus. Well, we talked about Epicurus. It's an interesting story, though, what Epicurus is painting here. Pain is neither unendurable nor unending. So this kind of comes down to another thing we talked about before. Either pain is something you cannot endure, well, then it will kill you, and then it's over. This is a Stoic thought. Oh, then that's it then. Or pain can be endured. I mean, it can or cannot be endured. There are no other options, right? You can take it or you cannot take it. And then added to that is also the duration. Either pain is very intense, but it won't last long. Because if it does, it'll kill you. Or pain is not that intense, but it may last long. Neither of these things are nice, but they remain indifference. Pain remains an indifferent. And even in circumstances of pain, again, you can do the virtuous thing. I also like how he, near the end, states that, remember too that many things we find disagreeable are the unrecognized analogues of pain. A very nice choice of wording, unrecognized analog. So it is like pain, but you may not always realize it is. Drowsiness, oppressive heat, loss of appetite. And these are all very physical things, but you can also, again, think of psychological or emotional pain or things that trouble you, right? Those things also happen. They affect you. But maybe there too, maybe not a solution, but maybe a way to think about it is what he says here. So when you find yourself complaining of any of these, say to yourself, you are giving in to pain. Now the fun thing is that even from a cognitive neuroscientific perspective, that's actually kind of supported by research and by theory. I won't bother you with all the details because the details are actually quite complicated, but in a nutshell, think about your body. Pain travels from any part of your body that's injured, let's say your hand, through your arm, up into your spinal cord, and from your spinal cord into your brain, and there it is processed. But now what's interesting, if you ever notice when you hit your elbow or something, you get that sharp stabbing pain, but then you start to rub your elbow. Why would you do that? Well, there is a theory called the gate theory of pain, which states that the signal for touch, which is like pain, but it's not exactly pain, the signal for touch also travels through your nerves, the spinal cord to the brain. So if you can create a competing signal to pain, you may lessen the effect of the pain. If your elbow hurts and you rub it vigorously, then that rubbing of your skin is a signal that also goes into your brain, may compete with the pain signal, and in the end, if it's vigorous enough, may not completely eradicate, but may lessen the pain. That's another way to look at it. You can give into pain or you can choose not to. I'm not saying this is easy, and I'm not trying to make light of people in chronic pain. I'm not saying it's as simple as saying, oh, I just won't feel any pain and I'm fine. It's not that. The final effect of pain is that you have top-down control. You can learn to focus on other things but your pain, and the result is typically that people report feeling less pain. But again, what I'm just trying to say, I'm also trying to use as an analogy to other types of pain. Psychological pain or emotional pain. Those things too, you sometimes have to rub away or think away, top down. That doesn't mean you can eradicate them, but you can minimize them. One of the most powerful statements for me in all of Stoicism is Epicurus from the Enchiridion. Everything has two handles. You can look at anything from two perspectives. Everything has two handles, one by which it may be borne, one by which it may not. If you use the wrong handle, you will not be able to lift up a situation, and you will suffer. And if you choose the other handle by which you can lift that thing, that situation, that object, then you can lift it up. It makes sense, I think. I can lift up the bottle like this. Trying to lift it up like this is a lot harder, and at some point it'll fall. Choose. No matter what happens, you have the power to choose. You're in charge of your mind. And realizing that you have that choice, I truly believe, can lessen certain forms of pain. And that's it. I hope this was useful. I'll gladly see you again soon for more talk about Stoicism. Bye-bye.